Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tathadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are still in our 6th chapter. How many verses are in this chapter? It's a long one.
Almost 290.
So we've got about another 100 to go, right?
Yeah, 120.
So what verse are we on?
169.
169.
Tanto sankocha vistara chalanadau pathastatha avashyameva bhavati na swantantram patemana. When threads are contracted or expanded, or any motion is imparted to them, the cloth similarly behaves. It has no independence at all.
Yes. So he's using this metaphor of the carpet or the piece of cloth, which is comprised of the various threads. And so the stuff of mind out of which the universe is made, when that contracts, etc., when the mind has a reaction, it affects the cloth, meaning the equipment. Here, meaning this jiva bhavana. I'm upset. I am frightened. When it is the mind, like the thread, that is in fact undergoing the contraction. But the self is never touched by. Next verse.
Tathantaryam yayam yatra yaya vasanaya yatha viktriyeta tatha vashyam bhavatyeva na sanshayah. Similarly, the worldly objects assume the form in the manner he transforms them according to their past desires and impressions. There is no doubt about it.
So the people, the dogs and the frogs, everything in the world assumes forms based on their past impressions. So we read the stories in like Yoga Vasishta or Tripura Rahasya about, say, a particular Brahmin, and he looks out and he's a king going by, and then he has the thought, oh, life would have been better if I'd been a rich king. Then he has some particular vision where he goes through being a king and then loses his purity and becomes a chandala and all this sort of stuff. So we go through these various experiences based on the force of the past and the impressions laid down. Don't have to think in terms of reincarnation. All we have to do is think in terms of this particular life. So, Puneet just told me he's going to a Vipassana retreat at the end of the month. Why? Force of the past. And then next month you're off to India. Why? That's all. Sometimes we set up chains of causations that don't necessarily serve us. I made fudge. I think I've already had 3 or 4 pieces of it. If I have half a dozen more, it'll be good going down. But then when I take my blood sugar in the morning, 250. Inevitable results of past actions. This is what happens. Most of the tribulation we experience, the maturing of the force of the past, done in ignorance. I go into a AA room. I tell you, not one of the people in that room, when they turned 16 or 17, said, gee, I want to grow up and be an alcoholic. Nobody has that thought. But the unconscious chains of causation set in motion things. And that's for most of us. Next verse.
Ishvara sarvabhutanam hrideshe juna tishtati brahmayansa bhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says, O Arjuna, the Lord abides in the hearts of all beings and makes them revolve by his Maya as if mounted on a wheel.
Yes. So it's an early reference to the idea of the Ferris wheel. Or even better yet, not a Ferris wheel, what I'm thinking of, the merry-go-round. So on the merry-go-round, there's all these animals, the horse and the swan and everything like that. And it goes round and round and they go up and down and up and down. It's all mechanical. They're jada, inert, but just revolving around and around. Do 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 do, just going round and round. That's how the Lord has set the whole universe into movement. And that includes this one's body and that one's body. I was talking with a young man today, and he said, oh, I just get the feeling that I was born to be special, like to do something great and significant. I just keep getting in my way, but I know that's what I'm supposed to do. Various forms of pride. Who's to say what the Lord has in mind? Antithetically, I was watching an interview with one of the greatest operatic tenors of the 20th century, John Vickers, Canadian. And he pretty much thought he'd exhausted his career in Canada, decided to give up the whole thing, go back to being a business person. He'd set his end date for his career at the end of June. I can't remember, 1956, I think it was. Made the decision, I'm done with music. Then, in a matter of 4 weeks, he was approached by 4 or 5 of the major opera houses in the world. So he said, just doors opened and I walked through them. This wonderful sense of effortlessness. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't follow his passion to sing. He was a Christian, and he had the idea that the Lord had given him this gift. He thought what he was supposed to do was sing in churches. He was a major figure at the Metropolitan for many, many years. Sang in San Francisco, too. I saw him there. But in Gita, Krishna says, thy right is to work alone, never to its fruits. I am the karma paladata. I am the giver of the fruits of action, the Lord says. Meaning, we never really know what the chains of causation are that have been set up for us. And it's not even just my karma as an individual. It's how that interfaces with the society as a whole. Any thoughts on this? So again, another person comes to me and, oh, my life is so bad. I just don't like where I live. It's too dark. I don't like my job. I should be someplace else. And anyway, I don't want to work from 2 to 10. I want to work from 6 to 4. Always thinking what's wrong is on the outside. What's wrong is on the outside. And what yoga says, no, you're right where you're supposed to be. How do I know that? Because that's where you are. So we practice santosha, contentment. Keep working for excellence. The Lord will put us where we're supposed to be. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sarvabhutani vijnanam asti hridaye sthitaha tadupadana bhutesha tatra vikriyate khalu. Quote, all beings, end quote, in the above passage means the jivas or the sheets of intellect which abide in the heart of all beings. Being their material cause, the Lord appears to undergo changes with them.
So, because there's that chaya, that shadow self, that reflection of consciousness caught in the web of thought, as these various kartas, that sense of agency in the subtle intellect of all the people, as it undergoes changes to that person's mind, it seems like I undergo change. But that's an apparent change. It never really changes the self. At any time a person has the interest, the instruction, introvert the attentive faculty and notice, well, who am I really? It's always the same, a changeless. Next verse.
देहादि पंचरम यंत्रम तदारोहोऽभिमातिना विहित प्रतिषि विहित विहित प्रतिषिदेषु प्रवृत्तिर्भ्रमणं भवेत्. By the word wheel is meant the cage of the body with sheets, etc. By saying that all beings are mounted on the wheel is meant that they have come to consider the body as the ego. By the word resolve is meant the performance of good and bad deeds.
Revolve or resolve?
Sorry, revolve.
Yes. So here, rather than the merry-go-round, he's saying it's the sense of this body, mind, intellect moving through its various experiences. That's all. Impelled by what we perceive of as good and bad deeds. So the import of the verse is, in the end, it doesn't matter a whole lot what your external circumstances are. In a sense, it's irrelevant to real peace of mind. Don't try to be a super successful person. Don't even try to be a saint. Leave that up to the Lord. Oh, you are Brahman. Have no relationship with this shadow-like thing called the body. Next verse.
पटरूपेण संस्थानात् पटस्थन्तो वपुर्यथा सर्वरूपेण संस्थानात् सर्वमस्य वपुस्तथा. As a piece of cloth is said to be the body of the threads which become the cloth. Oh, sorry, I wrote the old verse. My bad.
You skipped one?
No, I thought I flipped the page, but I did not. Vijnanam ya rupena tat pravritti swarupatah swashakto yesho vikriyate mayaya brahmanam hitat. The meaning of the expression, quote, the Lord makes them revolve by his Maya, end quote, is that the Lord, by his power of Maya, becomes involved in the intellect sheath and seems to change with the operations of the intellect.
So the operative word here is seems. Did he use Eva? Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little Eva. Very important word. It means seemingly, apparently, as it were. Doesn't really happen. But for those of us in ignorance, I, Jim, have these problems, and I have these goals, and I have these impediments, and so doesn't like me, and I am annoyed by so and so. Where in the Vijnana Maya Kosha, in the subtle intellect, I continue to attribute to the self the qualities of the non-self. That is the root of it. Next one.
Antaryamaya yukta yamevartha shrutau shrutah पृथिव्यादिषु सर्वत्र ज्ञानयोऽयं योजयतां didha. The same meaning is expressed by the Shruti saying that the Lord is called the inner controller. By applying this reason, one can come to the same conclusion with regard to the physical elements and all other objects.
So, what do we mean by the inner controller? What is the first vasana? What is the total vasana? What is the cause of it all? One of the other names for our own bundle of vasana, it's called deep sleep. It's called sushupta, deep sleep. It's called avyakta, the unmanifest. But it's also called the karana sharira. Karana means cause. We translate it as the causal body. My bundle of vasanas. Because it not only from deep sleep causes the waking state and the dream state, but it causes the various activities that happen in those states. Where did my vasanas come from? Yesterday's egoistic activity. Where did that come from? The day before, the day before, the day before. Where does it all begin? All traces itself back to Ishvara. That creative power of the infinite. Where seemingly it all comes into being. Next verse.
Janami dharmam nacha me pravritti janamya dharmam nacha me nivritti kenapi devena hridi sthitena yatha niyuktosmi tatha karomi. I know what is virtue, but my inclination is not mine to practice it. I know what is vice, but my desisting from it is not mine, but his. I do as I am prompted by some God seated in my heart.
Whoa. So that's the experience of all of us. We're coming up to the first of the year, where so many of us make New Year's resolutions. And we don't talk about the February failures. And I'm going to give up smoking. I'm going to give up sugar. I'm going to give up gossip. And I find myself doing it again. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, says exactly the same thing. I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my limbs. That was his way of talking about these destructive, negative vasanas, which have their root in ignorance. How powerful they are. No blame. Does that mean we're stuck? No. Ultimately, by God's grace, as the mind keeps turning to the infinite, what Patanjali calls Ishvara Pranidhana, this trustful surrender to God, much of this by grace is altered. And we have to cooperate with grace and do our own tapas. So St. Augustine says we pray like it all depends on God, and we work like it all depends on us. Armchair grace doesn't work very well. As one person said, God doesn't wash windows. That was 2 years ago. Next verse.
Nartha purushakareణ vamasham bhaktayam yatah isha purushakarasya rupe nani nivartate. From the above verse, do not think that individual efforts are not necessary, for the Lord transforms himself as those efforts.
Yes. So my Purushartha is another manifestation of the infinite. So the way Swamiji used to talk about, he said it's not kismet, fate, it's karma. They're not the same. So I like to use the example, the foolish person walks outside of their house, and they sees dog poop on the porch. Oh, karma. And they leave it. But the intelligent person walks outside and sees dog poop on the porch and goes, karma, and then cleans it up, which is also karma. So our own suhej, auspicious desire, manifests as the engine for us to be able to do tapas, to do abhyasa, to do our viveka and dhyana, to do our yamas and niyamas. Any thoughts on this? Next verse. I like that he agrees with me.
Idrik bodhena nasvashya kavrittimeva varyatam tathapi shasya bodhena swatma sangatvadhijati. This theory does not contradict the ideas of the Lord prompting everything, for one who has known Ishvara to be the controller of things knows his self as non-attached.
Yes. So the idea here is depending on where we are in our sadhana, if we are ego identified, that is the time where Krishna will say in Gita, by all means, if you do not know who you are, be a yogi. That's the place to lodge the ego. Until your mind is sattvic enough and you can then detach. I am not the agent. I renounced my identification with the sense of agency. It is either guna and karma, or you can say it is Ishvara. It doesn't matter how you frame it in words. It's just not me, the individual, which doesn't exist. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
तावता मुक्तिरित्याहुः श्रुतय स्मृतयस्तथा श्रुति स्मृति ममैवाग्न्ये इत्यपीश्वर भाषितम्. Both the Shruti and the tradition declare this knowledge of non-attachment of the self to be the cause of release. It is also stated in Varaha Purana that both the scriptural and the traditional truths are from the Lord.
So in the end, the infinite is the author of the Upanishads, of the Vedas, the Shruti, the Smriti, the tradition, the collected wisdom of the great saints and sages, the avatars through the centuries. Thunder, it's true, it's true. There is no real person. It is at best a function in the subtle intellect, jiva bhavana, the attitude or feeling that I'm a person. It doesn't mean that ultimate reality is zero, like the Shunyavadins say. We went through that long section where he argued with that Buddhist notion. There is something real. Satchidananda, my form is pure existence, pure sentience, pure consciousness. And the fountainhead of all joy, bliss absolute. Next verse.
आज्ञाया भीतिहेतुत्वं भीषास्म्यादिति हि श्रुतं सर्वेश्वर त्वमेतत् स्यात् अंतर्यामित्वत पृथक्. The Shruti declares that in fear of him, the forces of nature operate, showing that his commandments engender fear. So his lordship over all beings is different from his inner rulership of them.
Read that again.
The Shruti declares that in fear of him, the forces of nature operate, showing that his commandments engender fear. So his lordship over beings is different from his inner rulership of them.
I have no idea what he means by that.
It's a reference from Taittiriya Upanishad.
But I'm not sure how he's going to. Let's see how he explains it.
Etasya va aksharasya prashasan iti shrutihi anta pravishta shastayam jananamiti cha shrutihi. One Shruti passage says that the suns and planets move at the command of the Lord. Another Shruti passage says that the Lord entering the human body controls it from within.
Okay, so I'm not sure what's the point he's driving at, whether it's some sort of external, we say macrocosmic rulership of lordship, or individual Ishvara Bhava inside each one of us as an individual ruler. Let's keep following this idea, because I'm not sure where he's going to go with it.
Jagatyo nirbhave desha prabhavapya Yat Kritvaha Avir Bhavatiro Bhava Vupatti Pralayo Matao. The Lord is said to be the source of the universe, for he causes the creation and dissolution of the world. By creation and dissolution are meant the manifestation and demanifestation of the world.
Yes. So that part of it's very clear. The easiest way to see that is, from where do your thoughts arise? Feels like out of nothing. But it is out of the unmanifest of your mind. With a big O, same place. And chances are what you've been thinking about for the past 10, 15 minutes might be the scripture, but your mind may have wandered, has some relationship to your past. Oh, gee, what am I going to do when I get home? Am I going to fix dinner? Or let's see, I saw that friend day before yesterday, or I made plans on traveling. Now I've got to go check that. All that kind of stuff happens. I personally see no big need to make a distinction between what he's calling the inner ruler, which is my own personal vasanas, and the infinite, the total vasana. Not a whole lot of difference. The reason I think it's important to look at it that way is we don't want to separate our own body, mind, intellect apart from the movement of the infinite. Why is this important? Many people will look back and say, oh, I regret having done blah, 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 blah. I so wish I had done something else. Or they'll say, oh, I missed that opportunity. I didn't look at my mail and I could have applied for such and such and such and such. Or I took this job and it turned out to be terrible. I should have stayed where I was. Most of us have had thoughts like that. My view, it's all Ishvara. I could have done no other any more than a rose bush across the street in the garden could do nothing else but rosify. It's all unfolding just as it's supposed to. Now, just as it's the nature of the bud to transform into a bloom, it is the nature of the human mind, due to the vasanas, to have desire arise and to make choices. And just as trees have grown across the street during the park, according to Ishvara, but we had 5, 6 years of serious drought. And I can remember there was a windstorm. Do you remember when some of them got blown down? Because the root systems had atrophied. So their death is also part of the Lord's plan, as will be yours and mine. Oh, it's all the hand of the enemy. My viewpoint, the same intelligence that's causing your eyelids to open and shut as you blink, that's moving thoughts in your mind, spinning galaxies. It's all Ishvara, including when I choose to do this instead of that. Including when I move from the state of trying to figure it out, to getting quiet and using the intuition, the deepest part of the mind. Next verse.
आविर्भावयति स्वस्मिन् विलीनं सकलं जगत् प्राणिकर्म वशादेश पटो यद्वत् प्रसारिरथः. The world remains potential as impressions in the Lord, and He causes its manifestation in accordance with the past deeds of beings. Creation is like the unrolling of a painted canvas.
So actually, Genesis is not something that took place 14.8 billion years ago. Genesis is happening now. And as the moment passes, it happens now. Ever new, ever vivid and immediate. But the Lord continues to unroll it. Like roll up a carpet and go unroll it. And the potentiality of it is all in the total vasana, the infinite possibility of everything. Might even be multiverses for all I know. But it's ever new. The Lord Himself is not bound in any way. We may think we know what the chains of causation are. But just try making a plan and see what happens. Ever new. Next verse.
पुनस्तीव्रो भावयति स्वात्मन्ये वाखिलं जगत् प्राणिकर्मक्ष्य वशायात् संकोची तपटो यथा. If the painted canvas is rolled up, the picture is no longer visible. In the same way, when the karma of beings is exhausted, the Lord withdraws into Himself the universe with all that it contains, that is, all remain in a latent form.
So, according to Hindu cosmology, at the end of an age, everything is rolled up till a new Big Bang happens. Is that true or not true? I don't know. But individually, every night, my day is all rolled into the potentiality of deep sleep. And in the morning, it unrolls again. According to the force of the past. Next verse.
Ratri ghasao sukti bodha vanmil unmilan nimilane tushni bhavam no rajye iva srishtila yavimao. The creation and destruction of the world are comparable to day and night, to the waking and sleep states, to the opening and closing of the eyes, and the activity and quiescence of the mind.
Yes. So he's drawn the same parallel. He is advocating what the Puranas and the Vedas say about Hindu cosmology as a scientific fact. It may be true. What I know for sure, I do not know. Cannot comment. But we as individuals, as it were, reenact what's implied. My day moves into that unmanifest form and sleep. Urges again, like the unrolling of the carpet from the picture in the morning. Next verse.
Avirbhava tirobhava shaktim vena hetuna arambha parinamadi chodhyanam natra sambhavaha. Ishvara is endowed with the power of Maya, which is the power of manifesting and de-manifesting. So the objections to the theory that creation has a beginning, or that it is evolutionary, or that things are naturally endowed with certain special qualities do not apply to it.
Yes. So what he's saying here is this linear view of time and that things have definite, special, immutable qualities doesn't apply to the Lord's Maya. Why is this important? Every sacred tradition has examples of Mahatmas, great souls, performing miracles which seem to defy our understanding of physical laws. Shirdi Sai Baba, Neem Karoli Baba. We were talking about Our Lady of Fatima appearing to these three kids. I think of the psychic surgeons in the Philippines. These apparent miracles happen all over the world and throughout time. How do they happen? They happen because The world is not concrete and bound by physical law. What is this world? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. It's all Brahman. Well, how have the names and forms come about? Sankalpena, by means of imagination. If you close your eyes, can you imagine a chicken with teeth? It's a miracle. The Lord has the capacity to imagine anything. And those yogis who understand that this world is just vibration held together by thought through their own tapas are able to use these metaphysical laws in ways that you and I may not have the capacity to do. However, all of us, to some degree, can improve the quality of life around us, not only for ourselves, but the people around us, by changing the habituated content of our thought. We have much more freedom. We participate in the creative process. God does not create the universe at us and to us, but as us and through us. Next verse.
Acheta nanam hetuhu syajad jada yashesh tatha chidabhasa chidabhashansa tasvesha jivanam karanam bhavet. Ishvara through the tamas of Maya is the cause of the inanimate objects, and through the reflection of the Supreme Intelligence, Ishvara is the cause of the jivas.
So, through the power of tamas, we get mountains, rocks, water, the elemental world. But through the property of sattva, mixed with rajas and tamas, we get what appears to be the sentient beings, which he calls jivas. Sense that I'm Jim, I am a person, and I do this, that, and the other thing. Next verse.
Tama pradhana kshetranam chit pradhana chidatmanam para karanatameti bhavanajnanam karmabhihi. It is objected that the cause of the bodies is that aspect of Paramatman in which tamas predominates, and that of the jivas is that aspect where intelligence predominates. So Paramatman alone is their cause in accordance with their inner impressions, moral and spiritual actions.
So the objection here is he's riffing a little bit on Sankhya philosophy, that the cause of the Purusha, the sense of the individual Jiva is the Paramatma and the Sattva, and the phenomenal world that is inert, including the bodies, is Prakriti, dumb, dull, Prakriti. Vedanta says it's all this Purusha Prakriti split that the Sankhya's talk about is not really what's going on. See how he replies.
Iti vartikakarena jada chetana hetuta paramatman evokta neshvara syeti shrinuhu. Thus, Sureshvacharya, the author of Vartika, has attributed the cause of the animate and inanimate creation to Paramatman and not to Ishvara.
Read that again.
Thus, Sureshvaracharya, the author of Vartika, has attributed the cause of the animate and inanimate creation to Paramatman and not to Ishvara.
Yes. So I think this is still the objector,
correct,
talking. So he's quoting another particular philosopher, and they're making a distinction to Paramatman and not Ishvara. So let's see how he replies.
Anyonya dhyasa matrapi jivakutasthayorivah Ishvara brahmano siddham kritva brute sureshvaraha. Our reply is that Acharya Sureshvara holds Brahman to be the cause of the world, but he has taken for granted the mutual superimposition of Ishvara and Brahman, even as that of Jiva and Kutastha.
So what is the mutual superimposition? The mutual superimposition is that I superimpose upon the self the qualities of the not self. I superimpose on Brahman the qualities of Ishvara, total mind, Jagat. Then I superimpose on the not self the qualities of the self. The object over there is real. Puneet over there is sentient. The fudge is inherently joy-giving. And here, Ishvara is inherently sentient and has a sentience apart from Brahman. Those are mutual superimpositions. They are caused by confusion, by ignorance. Let's see what he says following up on
that. Satyam jnanam anantam yat brahma tasmat sumithyata kamyaya vagni jalo vyoshat yanna deha iti shrutihi. The Shruti explains clearly that from Brahman, who is truth, knowledge, and infinity, arose Akasha, air, fire, water, earth, herbs, food, bodies, and so forth.
So here, I think he's in his reply. What he's saying ultimately is all phenomena has its origin in Brahman. And this is exactly what Krishna said yesterday in the 10th chapter of Gita. I am the origin of everything. Now, is it created? Is it manifested? Or is it imagined? Can we say the mirror is the origin of the reflection. Does the reflection exist as something separate from or apart from the mirror? No. The mirror itself, which appears as the reflection. I go into the bathroom and look in the mirror manifests as Jim. Puneet goes in, the mirror manifests as Puneet. Has the mirror undergone any change? No. And listen carefully. The Jim in the mirror and the Puneet in the mirror are inert. The Puneet in the mirror cannot look out and see things. It's jhana. But it's the nature of the mirror to have images. It is the nature of Brahman, even though it is kutastha, still and immovable. For a phenomenal world to appear, seen, but not real. Nothing is ever really created or manifest. Sarvam kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily Brahman. Brahman does not leave its nature. It doesn't change into the world. It's like the mirror doesn't change into the faces in it. Next verse.
आपात दृष्टितस्तत्र ब्रह्मणो भाति हेतुता हेतोश्च सत्यता तस्मात् अन्योन्याध्यास इष्यते. Superficially, it looks as if Brahman were the cause of the world and that Ishvara were a real entity. This cannot be explained except by the mutual superimposition of the true nature of Brahman on Ishvara and the creativity of Ishvara on Brahman.
Yes. So macrocosmically, there is no Lord Ishvara separate from Brahman of infinite will. There is no sentience in Brahman. It is a way to explain what happens through the Lord's Maya Shakti, inherent power in Brahman to make the impossible seem possible. Why is he bagging on this point? Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. Nothing's really going on. Dial down the mind's ignorant reactivity to the phenomenal world. Then see what you see. See if you don't see the world thin out. Times maybe even disappear. All right, we'll end here. What verse are we on? Oh, this is our last class of the year. The next Panchadasi class will be the 8th of January. So thank you all for a wonderful journey this year so far. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.